Hello everyone, welcome to GATE NPTL. Today we are going to solve a question from psychology. It's a one mark question from the topic of research methods and statistics. Now let's read the question. Which statistical technique is used to analyze patterns of loading of coefficients? We have four options: correlation, regression, factor analysis, and item analysis. Now let's go through these concepts, then let's get back to the question. Correlation. Correlation is basically a statistical technique used to measure the strength and the direction of relationship between two variables. So it just tells us the strength and direction. Let's imagine there are two variables A and B. It tells us the strength of these two variables, like how well these two variables are related to each other, and the direction, either is it related in positive direction or negative direction. As in, if A increases, does B also increase, which is a positive relation. If A increases, B decreases, which is a negative relation. So it tells us whether an increase in one variable is associated with an increase or decrease in another, which we just explained. And the range of the correlation coefficient is from -1 to +1, indicating perfect negative or perfect positive relationship respectively. So the range of correlation coefficient is from -1 to +1. So minus 1 towards -1 doesn't mean that the relationship is weak. It just means that the relationship is in negative side. So there is a relation of if there is a relation of -0.8 and 0.6, so the if there is a question which asks which among these two is strongly correlated, it is not 0.6 but rather it is -0.8, because it's just a negative direction but the strength of it is towards 1. So here this is towards 1 in the negative direction, so this has higher strength than 0.6. So that is the range which they have described here, that is from -1 to +1. So moving on to regression. Regression is used to predict the value of one variable based on one or more other another variable. So for example, we have A and B. So here A is called predictor and B, the dependent variable, is called criterion or the outcome variable. So here we try to find what we can find in regression is how well the predictor, that is A, can influence the dependent variable, that is the criterion. For example, it can show how factors like age, income, and education predict job satisfaction. So in the with the use of regression, we can find how well A can predict B. That is the major purpose of regression analysis. Coming to factor analysis, this is most widely used method in tool construction or developing a questionnaire or anything. It is designed to identify the underlying patterns or dimensions among a large number of variables. It analyzes factor loadings, which indicates how strong each variable is associated with a particular factor. So this is used to reduce the data complexity by grouping correlated variables into a smaller set of factors that represent shared traits or constructs. So therefore, this is the technique used to analyze patterns of loading of correlation. So I'll explain this with an diagram. So let's imagine there are four variables: 1, 2, 3, and 4 as given here. So what factor analysis does is it tries to find all the correlated variables and clubs them into one factor, like how it is given here. It clubs them into one factor. So let's imagine we are constructing a tool and we have asked five questions related to depression: one, two, three, four, five. So these five questions should be correlated to each other. So once we analyze these factors, this data in factor analysis, it will club into one common factor. So in a fashion, we can say that this many questions are basically analyzing only this factor, which can be anything, can example depression. So here the data reduction happens because we are reducing the number of data points to certain factors. So that is the major purpose of factor analysis, helps to reduce the data complexity by grouping the correlated variables together. Moving on to item analysis. So, item analysis is used to evaluate the quality and effectiveness of individual test items in a questionnaire or a scale. So, item analysis is one of the major steps in tool construction. So, under item analysis, we have many things such as item discrimination, item total correlation, difficulty index, etc. So basically, the use of item analysis is to identify if that certain item is well enough to be used in a test. So one among a method among item analysis is item discrimination, which basically sees if there is two items, it should help us to discriminate the people who are scoring at the top, that is high scorers and low scorers. So this item should be able to identify and let us know who are the high scorers and who are low scorers. So it should have that ability to distinguish between those two type of scorers, whether they contribute meaningfully to the total test score. And we have item total correlation and difficulty index also. So difficulty index is how difficult a certain item is, so that is called difficulty index. So it ranges from 0 to 1. So if many individuals are answering the item in a correct way, the item difficulty will be 1, which means that the item is very easy. And if it is towards 0, it means that the item is very difficult. So item discrimination, difficulty, total correlation, all this comes under item analysis concept. Now coming to question, they have asked us which statistical technique is used to analyze patterns of loadings of coefficient. So this loading is nothing but the factor loading which we saw earlier, where we have many variables which loads together and gives us one factor. So that we saw in which topic? Factor analysis. So factor analysis is the right answer for this question. And for further references, you can follow this materials. Thank you.